There's a bit of a history for this. In 1995, the Long Range Planning Committee also had a similar meeting, but they didn't have enough turnout, so they had 2 more meetings. By the 3rd meeting, everybody was here. And so I hope as we go forward, there'll be other times when we come where a larger gathering, people come, and some of the more serious questions get asked. I also thank everybody who came. But it's been hard to gather my thoughts together because it's a very big presentation that you made. There was one thing Scott said that I think we have to talk to you. He said, we don't want that to happen. Although we, in this case, is the cooperators. And so we will make some decisions if we have a chance. The problem is often the decisions get made before the cooperators have a chance to make input to them. Maybe this is the beginning, but we need more meetings and we need more time. Also, had you made this presentation to me when I was putting my application in, I would have said, this is a slum. I'm not going to live here. Everything's falling apart. But this is not a slum. This is a historic project in which very careful planning went into the building of the buildings. And the ornate design, the tulip design, was a common building practice and exists throughout the city. So I think we have to be careful not to see this as a disaster zone, although it does appear that way when we see all of what's being presented. And I worry about that, because this is in a context. The context is just this year, we've been told we're refinancing the mortgage, and we have this reason to refinance it. And maybe there isn't this reason. Maybe some of what you found can be put off. We don't need the large amount of monies involved. And that's what I don't quite understand. In 2010, your firm did 4,000 balcony inspections. I wonder how many of those balconies proved to need immediate fixing or would be declared unsafe. In fact, there's a category of safe with repair and repair maintenance program. I wonder if when you do your specific investigation of each balcony, whether there can be categories, those that are unsafe and those that are safe with repair and maintenance program. The reason I say that is we pay our rent monthly, and so our costs can be met within our means. This is a low and moderate income housing project. We're part of the state's effort to have a diversity of income people in New York State. Otherwise, all of the buildings would be higher rental and higher maintained or whatever. I think we have to look at the cost of this and how we spread it out. And that's why I fault the board for taking a 15-year mortgage rather than a 30-year mortgage. And I also looked and asking the further work you do. Apparently, you are our QEWI, that is qualified external wall inspector, because you're doing the local law. In that local law, it's different. When you say unsafe, that's one category. Unsafe in the report means there has to be a date by which it gets repaired. And that means we have to pay for it by the date by which it gets repaired. And so I don't know how you come about looking at it, but from the point of view of the cooperators, for me as a cooperator, if there's a way to spread out even what appears to be some balconies unsafe. I don't know how many balconies there are. Do you know how many balconies?
190.
What?
190.
In
both the towers.
Just in both towers?
Yes.
And how many apartments in there? 315.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's one
question.
Pardon me?
Please be respectful. I think he's making some of the best points made this evening. I'd appreciate that. Okay.
I just asked a question. I asked how many balconies there were and how many of them might be categorized as safe with repair and maintenance program, and how many are immediately. And I think that what I'm hearing is they're all going to be called unsafe. And I think that requires a beginning to put the expenses up front. And I think that's beginning to make this into a place where many people will not be able to live. The state has an obligation, which it doesn't fulfill on, which is to help us maintain a low and moderate income project. So I think also, we have to be careful that we make a kind of presentation and make an invitation to people where the presentation is shorter, and people like me, I lost track a little bit. I think we need to have the possibility of more people learning more of the problems and also making input to how they should be solved. I also think there's a problem And the problem is, we've had a doctor examine us and tell us what we need to be done. Now we need a second opinion. The reason we need a second opinion is because it's not clear to me whether the perspective of Howard Zimmerman is the same perspective as a Rushdale cooperative. As a Rushdale cooperative, we look at our problems and we say, how do we solve them? Howard Zimmerman says, here's your problems and here's a solution for you. So the obligation really is our board to involve more of the cooperators in the observation of the material that you brought to us and the discussion of how we're going to go forward to fix it. So I have a strong request that the board, I don't know how many are here, but the board members take to have more of these meetings where more people see the value of it and come to them, and where the presentations are shorter and the questions can be asked. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't want to give the impression that we rammed this down anybody's throat. We diagnosed the problem, presented it to the board, are in discussions with the board about options, sequencing, etc. We are merely reporting to the board and giving them options. It is totally for the board to execute those options and tell us how they want to implement it. As far as the issue, a good point about the balconies, they were all put on at the same time, built at the same time, weathered for the same amount of years. Although we took the covers off of a few, we are interpolating that the rest of them, when we pull the covers off, are as deteriorated as the ones we saw. And if they're not, they're pretty close to it. We know this from experience. The gentleman's question about could we do some balconies in 5 years and some other balconies in 10 years because maybe they're better than the ones that need to be repaired in 5 years. It's an uneconomical solution if you choose that. The reason being it's a stack of balconies, 15, 19 stories tall, the most economical way because you have mobilization costs in putting bridges down, in hanging scaffold, and the most economical way, even though it's expensive, is to get them all done in one shot, because otherwise you're going to end up spending another $40,000 a couple of years down the road to put back the protection bridging that you have to, hanging scaffolds, and getting new men up there to do the other half of the project that you didn't do. So, I mean, it's a valid question. I just don't think it's economically possible. As far as a second opinion, that's not a problem for us. That's a board decision. Thank you.
Let me just, because this issue's come up before about a peer review, I think Mr. Hauben brought it up. A peer review, we paid $79,000 for this P&A report. They spent a lot of time. They used the bucket truck. They practically saw 75% of Building 9 and varying percentages of other buildings with the use of the bucket truck as well as scaffolding. What